Hey, yeah, I'm Craig Saunders. I'm a music producer in Sydney, Australia. I'm also a visual artist, also an XR producer. So that's mixed reality, cross reality. But my main focus at the moment is music and visual arts, getting into crypto collectibles. So, NFT tokenized art. Got a few projects, a few music projects. Main band is Novakill, which I do with a mate here in Sydney. I've got another project, Nova State Machine, that I do with a guy in Moscow. I do the music, he does the vocals and lyrics, then I put it all together. Doing some work with a guy in Canada. He's in Richmond in British Columbia. So yeah, there's a few things going on.
So you're
Got to stop.
constantly busy. Is this how you keep sane? Is by being creative all the time?
Keep sane by being insane. Yeah, it. I just gotta. I'm compelled. I just love making sounds and reworking tunes, and there's infinite possibilities. But yeah, that just it keeps me sane. Otherwise, I don't know what I'd be doing.
Sure.
Um,
So your studio's in your home, I'm assuming.
yeah. It's just a little home set up down in. It's not the basement, but it's downstairs. You just got a rental place. So I make do with just chuck some gear in there, make some noise.
Cool. May I ask what is sitting behind you? You've got quite an impressive bit of gear there.
Uh, that's the Moog.
Oh yeah, it's silver. That's the limited edition one you were saying.
Yeah. The Ultra Nova, I got some drum pads and just a little mixer. An old Chaos pad
Oh yeah, you were talking about that.
from years ago. And Prophecy usually sits there, but it's getting fixed at the moment.
Okay.
That's, I don't know how old that is. That's got to be 20 more.
So
Yeah.
you're based in Sydney, Australia. Were you born there?
Yeah.
Yes, wondering if you could tell us a little about the city, and does it still have a gothic industrial scene there?
Sydney, when I grew up, primarily white, we'll say privilege. I mean, there was, a reasonable migrant population coming in, but, when I was growing up at school, we were all pretty much whitey. There's a few people from Indian, I guess, and Sri Lankan descent, and Turkish, but that was kind of it. So that's just the area. Sort of where I grew up was it's about 20 minutes, 30 minutes drive from the city, from the main city. It's quite urban, suburban. I didn't really get into electronic music till I was 16, 17, 18. Listened to the radio a bit. Parents listened to a lot of classical music and what was pop music for them. Classical music I kind of, got into was really something to listen to. It wasn't just surface level. It was really, lots going on. In the electronic music scene, for me, started listening to the radio, free-to-air radio. As a national broadcaster. Obviously, wasn't commercial, so they could play some weird stuff at night. There's a good show, 10 o'clock each night, and that's where I started to hear some really good, interesting music. I mean, I was familiar with New Order and Cabaret Voltaire and Cure and those things, but SPK. So this would have been 80, 85. I really started to appreciate weird electronic music. So, local heroes like SPK, Severed Heads, Jim Thirlwell, that really, got my juices flowing. And I was at art school at the time, so I was able to actually, embrace and go a bit mental for what passed mental for me back then. I was also still fairly conservative. My parents are very conservative. So I was just starting to get into that fringe culture. And it would have been another few years before I actually went to a goth club. And there was Sanctuary was around for a long time. It still is going, but it's in a very small venue. But back 90s was the main time for industrial and goth music in Sydney, but there weren't that many clubs. And in fact, there was a few goth clubs, nothing really playing EBM and industrial. So Bones is from Novakill, we thought, well, hey, we'll just do it ourselves. So we set up a nightclub called Virus, booked a venue. It was, for a while, it was every Wednesday, every month, once a month on a Wednesday night. So it was midweek, just because the goth things were on the weekends. And we had a good time. Actually, we had a great time. So we got to play some cool music.
So you started throwing your own parties to be able to play your music to people.
Well, we were fans. We were big fans. I mean, Bones, he'd had a band for a while beforehand, which was sort of he's a bit older than me, but he had a bunch of gear. He's into goth music, a lot of punk. He's heavily influenced by punk, but he was just a one-man band, and he had his guitar and backing tapes. Back then we all used backing tapes. Now we sequence off a laptop and then play a bit of live stuff over the top. But he played live guitar. Everything else was programmed. He had gear on stage, drum machines, etc. And but he was a fan primarily. I mean, he loved playing, but we were just fans of the music, and we just couldn't get enough. So our club was focused on industrial. So everyone else was doing goth stuff, so we were just playing industrial. And just we could sort of bring that music to other people that they weren't, it was hard to get hold of. You could hear some stuff on the radio, but it was late at night, and so unless you were in a club, you weren't hearing that music. So and we wanted to hear it loud, blast it out. But we had to order discs in, mail order through the record stores, but stuff. I read about Zothomog in a magazine. I'd not heard anything, and I think it was Tala to XLC. He was replying to some article and said, you didn't mention Zothomog, we're doing this stuff in Germany. And I thought, that sounds really interesting. So I looked up the catalog. I went to the record store, looked up through the catalog, found Leather Strip, Solitary Confinement. Oh, that kind of sounds interesting. That sounds about right. Ordered that and got it. It was like, oh my God, this is just amazing stuff. And that, from what I had been listening to, and then Bones and I were like, wow, this is just, it's not amazing music in the sense that we could do it. That was part of the thing about it. You think, oh wow, this is something that we can really do. And these guys are releasing music, in Germany like this. We can do that. So we thought we're gonna bring this music to people in Sydney, and it really influenced what we wanted to do as a band. So he and I teamed up, started playing some music. He had some gear and production knowledge. I had some ideas. I had a little studio at home, some keyboards, and we just tooled around and came up with a few songs. Then Bones was actually DJing in a club, and this guy came up to him and they started chatting, and it turned out he was Kai. He was the manager of Funkavote. And Bones, said, oh yeah, we've got some stuff we're doing, and I'll give you a tape. But anyway, so we struck up a relationship with Kai, and then eventually when we had an album's worth, we sent it to him. It's like, yeah, so they released it. So their first album. Yeah.
So how... Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's a bit of coincidence involved, a bit of luck, but we might have got around to releasing it through another channel, but the fact that we got through Germany was, to us, was a great stroke of luck.
Definitely. So how has your goals changed as an artist from when you started? And did you come to a point where you thought to yourself, wow, I made it?
Getting that first album out and getting some good reviews was like, wow, this is nice. This is good.
Yeah.
And sales, even back then, sales, especially for this genre, weren't great. We never expected to make money from it. But my goals as an artist, it always has been to produce stuff that I'm happy with, especially with music. Back with Novakill, we do stuff that we would like to listen to, that we enjoy music of the same style from other artists, but this is our take on it. We're not trying to reinvent the genre. We're not trying to push the boundaries. We just wanted, this is some good, solid EBM, dark electro, industrial stuff that we would buy, and we had record collections, especially with DJing. And Bones also worked in a record store for a while and imported a bunch of stuff. So we used to get things brand new, straight off the shelf and stick it in the clubs where we'd get to hear some of the new stuff coming, especially from Germany. A lot of stuff coming from the States as well. A lot of it we knew that we couldn't do. We weren't guitarists. We're not great keyboard players. So we never were aiming for high art or for that performance level. We like playing live. I get up there and bash around on the drum pads, play some keyboards live. Bones jumps around, sings and shouts. We have fun. That's kind of what that was about. The last few years, I guess I've been wanting to push my own skills and knowledge, production skills, and I think a lot of my ideas haven't changed. Now it's just really pushing my technical ability to achieve some of those things. But a lot of it is just noodling, finding a sound that you like, and I can make a 5-minute piece out of this, and remix. There's so many ways you can play with a song and a sound and rework, and I think that's infinite. Different to filmmaking, for instance. If you're trying to tell a story with the camera, there's always the one place where that camera should be for that shot to convey that meaning at that particular point in time. There's always, the camera has to be there. But with music, you can change the drums, change the sounds, change the lyrics if you want, and you can, bring something else out of that piece. So that's kind of what I'm about now, I guess, is that, I know it's very postmodern, I suppose, but it's working and reworking and this never-ending cycle and juggle and exploration. But now I've got, after a number of years, a lot more confidence as well, confidence and skills and a bit of knowledge, and the software that you've got now. It just makes a lot of things so much easier. Back at art school, reel by 4-track, reel to reel, take the reels off, cut it up, stick it back together, make your loops and all that stuff. It was great fun. But now you can just do that stuff in seconds. And no good, I'll try again. But back then, it's like you'd spend hours finding a bit of tape, cutting it, splicing it together, looping it. If you wanted a long loop, you had to get some C-stands, and it was a real process. And then you have to bounce that down to another tape system and then build all that up. It was a real work, but now you just bang. So in some ways it's almost too easy, and you kind of do get a bit lazy. But at the same time, it's amazing to have the software and tools that exist now, and it's just getting better and better.
Sure.
I mean, I'm on Cubase 10.5, 11's just dropped. It's got some good features. I don't know if I'll update just yet, but we'll see. I'm quite happy playing with what I've got. We were using Orion for a long time. I don't know if you know that.
Orion?
Orion, yeah. It was actually, it's
Orion.
developed out of Germany. It's a really good little DAW. Not very well known at all. And Bones was a beta tester on it, so we'd get to use it for free. The sound, the instruments that are native to it are really, really good. So it's from the developer that does Dune and The Legend, Synapse Audio. He's making a name for himself now with Dune 2, Legend, and Obsession, which is the new Oberheim emulation that he's done, which sounds great. But yeah, the DAW that he produced was really good. It suited us. It sounded great. Really good sort of workflow. It was mixer based, and we used that for a long time. But then he stopped developing it, and then I was working with some guys based out of Melbourne, and they were all using Cubase, and I was looking to change. I thought, okay, I'll give Cubase a go, and you get the version you get when you get some Yamaha gear, so you get the free version of Cubase. I was playing with that, and I went up to Artist, and then worked my way up, and it's amazing with tools in it. You think, holy crap! So it's like Orion. Orion was almost like working with tape again in some respects, because you try to do stuff and you struggle, but Cubase is just like, oh, so many tools. It's fantastic. I love it. So I'm still learning that too. So that's just the last couple of years. That has been a real spark and inspiration and motivation to me, just to play. And the reason I'm partly doing all these remixes of things is just learning, playing with the tools and discovering things. So yeah, it's great fun.
So I was going to say, what were some of the things you struggled as an artist starting out, and what are some of the things you struggle with now?
Yeah, well, as an artist, I mean, even going back to visual arts, confidence. I mean, everyone struggles with confidence.
I was wondering, I was wondering if you could try scoot a little to your left, just a little bit. Like, yeah, there we go. That's cool. Thanks.
Yep. Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, confidence. I remember first time at art school, because everyone, we were drawing. Everyone at art school there for the first year, we'd all been drawing in our bedrooms or books, and maybe at school. But then the first real exercise was like life drawing, and we're all sort of sitting around in a semicircle. There's a subject there, and we're all sort of, I think it was a skull and a vase and just basic shapes at art school. And you're all thinking, this is kind of serious. What's the teacher going to think? What are the people next to me going to think? And I mean, we were chosen to be there, so we were part. It's not elite or anything, but we know we'd passed a certain level to get in there. So we were all. None of us were bad at it, but still, we were never fully confident that we knew what we were doing. This is why why you're in art school. And I remember a lot of people, I don't want to show it, or their first comment is, I know it's not great. I mean, it could be better. Blah blah blah. And I think that's a big thing with lots of artists, just that confidence or self-awareness, or that it's not even confidence. Maybe it's that fear of judgment. That, especially with a teacher or an instructor, but because you soon realize with an art teacher, they're not judging you, they're just there to help you. So it's just, then you start working with them. It's not like they're telling you do this, do this, do that. They're encouraging you. And I think that was just, to me, a big change in actually going from that, oh, what am I doing, to, oh, okay, I'm starting to learn and appreciate that I can do this, and start to look. And it's not just about one thing. There's so many ways of looking at things, and developing your art style as well. So that was a big breakthrough, and just getting the confidence to then, well, I can do this and I can do that, and then you start to work to your strengths. And I was playing around at art school. I had a lot of visuals, but I was starting to play with sound. I wouldn't call it music as such, but it was more sound. So starting to construct soundtracks for films and things. A lot of it was found object, and knowing that other people, this is where listening to some of this other music is inspirational and motivational, because you say, oh, these guys are doing it, they can do that, well, I can do this as well. You can get a couple of garbage can lids and smash them together and make music. So that was a revelation, really. You can make music out of everything and anything, which is what, I love industrial music. That's, pure industrial music, from that attitude. It's about attitude, not so much the sound. The sound comes from the attitude. So yeah, confidence and knowledge, I guess, when you're sort of in the bubble. Now it's crazy. There's just so much information out there. But when I started, we had to rely on our teachers and rely on our instructors, because they had that information. One of my instructors was a big fan of Severed Heads and Jim Thirlwell from Fetus. So we were talking about that, and then he'd suggest, oh, try this, try that. Have you heard Coil? Have you heard that? You're always referring to someone who's got a little bit more knowledge than you, which is why they're there. And when that guy ended up going to 2 art schools, and that was just an amazing part of my life, and actually changing how I look at and approach things, and knowing that it is work too. Like you can have an idea, but you've got to work at it. There's technical things, and then maybe your idea, are you conveying, and this is where confidence comes in again, but you get to know, am I conveying the message I'm trying to convey, especially with visual art. Music's different. You can sometimes you just want to have a boogie. You create a sound that you can move to. So that's sometimes that's a bit more throwaway.
Cheers, by the way. Drinking whiskey.
Vodka. So resources, I guess, too. Like you don't always have the tools that you want. I was lucky again at art school. We had an old, even then it was old, ARP 2600, but it was broken. So I was determined to make this thing work, and because the resource store said, I don't think it works so well. I said, let me have a try. So I got the book, the patch book, got a suitcase. It was like a little school suitcase full of cables, and I went down and I opened the book and looked and started patching everything in. And so I'm going to make this sound, and then because you do it all, flick all the switches. Does it look like the book? Yeah. Looks like the picture in the book, and then because you hit a key and it just makes this horrible farting, burping noise. Okay, all right, it doesn't sound like, the strings that said in the book. So you try another one. Did that for, hours, I think, and each time it was just this horrible farting noise. So I gave that up. But I had a Juno 106 as well. So that was my first real synth that I got to play with. So that allowed me to actually start producing my own electronic sounds. And again, see how kind of easy it was. And a MIDI was coming in. College started getting Steinberg, the first Steinberg 24, I think we had. And I remember this guy, Derek Kreckler, who actually he did some work with Severed Heads on Bad Mood Guy. So he was showing us MIDI sequencing, and that was like, oh my God, this is going to change everything. And then it did. And then, of course, after college, bought my own couple of synths, played around. I had an Amiga, and just wanted to make music, electronic music. But the only way to do it is to do it. You just have to get in there and start playing.
Sure.
And I made a few tapes, but there was no real market here in Sydney. And we had, like I said, there was a few local heroes like Severed Heads. Boxcar were starting to emerge in the late 80s. Boxcars sounded not a New Order ripoff, but they had, obviously very influenced by New Order. And we had a couple of other bands from the 80s, but they sort of died off, like Real Life. But yeah, there was no market for the sort of the underground, electronic, darker stuff that we were starting to do, or we were playing with. Very small market. SBK didn't play live much. I saw Severed Heads nearly every time they played, which was like once every 6 months or so. And there was always there was a couple of bands that they played with fairly regularly. So it was always the usual suspects and always the same kind of crowds. There wasn't really any scene as such until there was sort of a couple of the golf clubs, and that was mainly from people who'd been overseas, who'd been to the clubs in England and Germany, and they sort of thought, we saw some cool stuff over there, we'll sort of have a go and do that here. Even radio, there wasn't much goth played on the radio that I listened to, so you had to go to the clubs to listen to that stuff. You had to go there to find something new and interesting, and you couldn't always be running up to the DJ going, well, what are you playing? What's that? So we just, when Bones and I started, when we started with Virus, because where I was working, we could make slides. We had a computer program, and we actually shot onto film, and we got the slides developed. But we just put the band name. We didn't even put the song because we had so many. So we put the band name, and I got a projector from work, and we just projected the band name. So whenever we changed the song, we put the band name up, so at least people could look at the wall and go, oh, this is Armageddon Dildos, or it's Ministry, or something new, something different. And sometimes they'd come up and say, oh, that's really cool, what's the song? And you'd show them, but a lot of the time they didn't have to. They could say, oh, this is this band or this band or this band, then they could go and look that up. So that was, from us, that came from us as fans wanting to get the music out there and let people know that it's not just the same, or the one or two same bands. There's a real scene starting to emerge, and because the internet now has changed all that, which is good and bad. I mean,
So you've been very lucky and blessed to travel the world, play in your music, and you've obviously met a lot of friends and met a lot of interesting people. Can you tell us about some of your experiences overseas and playing your music to people?
Yeah, well, we've gone to Wave Gothic a couple of times. We've not played in the States, but we played in England. So the first time we've only gone to Wave Gothic twice, and it was quite a ways apart actually, 10 years apart. But first time, again, we were going, and we were so excited because as fans, we get to go to Wave Gothic 4-day festival that you just do not get in Sydney, in Australia. I mean, we played with some bands here because we're friends with promoters. So whenever they tried to get an international act down here, we got to play with them in Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane. So we played with V&V Nation and KMFDM and Combi Christ and a few others, Snog from Melbourne. But going to England and then Germany, the way of Gothic, and seeing all these bands that we like, Dance or Die and Sterile, and we got to see the Krups. Because I haven't travelled, I'd not travelled much, so to me this was just amazing, and that's why we were so excited. And then we get to play, so because we knew Funkervote through Kai, but we went to England first. We did a gig at the Slimelight, which was incredible, amazing place, and they were really nice because they actually had some stuff on. And we went and spoke to them and sort of just said, oh, this is what's going on. And they managed to sort of squeeze us in. They had sort of a spare, hour or so. So they sort of said, okay, yeah, we'll put you on this stage. Because if you've ever been to Slimelight, there's so many rooms, huge place. But the thing was, we were flying out to Frankfurt the next morning, so we were playing that night. So we ended up just staying at Slimelight, and then we had to catch the bus out to Stansted, and they were fantastic. The rider was great, the music was great. There was a full-on club room, so we just sort of wandered around Slimelight for. I almost forget about playing. Apparently the gig was great, and there's people down the front going, "Oh, this is the best music, this is the best band I've ever seen." Okay. And I'm thinking, this guy's nuts. But that it blew me away in terms of how different it was from the clubs we get in Sydney, which is often in the corner of a pub, or if you're lucky, it isn't a dedicated nightclub, but it's not set up for the scene or for the genre. It's a club, and then you're going to get there, and the golf clubs in Sydney would spend ages before they opened draping black, cloth everywhere and hanging bats and all that stuff to give it a bit of mood. But Slimelight was just Slimelight, and it was huge. And then we could, because you get to Wave Gothic, and it's enormous. It's the whole city of Leipzig. The Agra is big enough, but then there's all these other places. So again, we got to hang out with Funkervote. We met quite a few fans actually that knew us, which was cool, because in Sydney, you play to small crowd of 10, 20, 50 at most. And because you go there and you sort of walk around and people, we were wearing our own shirts, bit of self-promotion. People come and say, "Oh, Novakill, do you know them?" And I say, "Oh, that's us." I think, "Oh, cool." And so we met a whole bunch of guys from Florida and Texas that we just had no idea, knew us. As far as we knew, we had a fan base in Germany. That was it. But hearing we had people in Florida and Texas, like Corpus Christi, who knew us, obviously through college radio and things, it was really, until then, we had no idea. So that was amazing. And it was just thrilling and a real buzz just to know people were digging what we did. And we were sort of holding our own next to some of our heroes. We played on the very same stage the Krups played. So to us, that was I guess that was success for us. That was okay. It wasn't like we'd made it or anything, but oh wow, we're sharing the same stage as the Krups. And the night we played, Hossico were on after us, Proceed were on before us. This More Nomina and Visage was like the midnight special. and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I can't remember because we were out the back drinking Dirty Harry, which is this licorice liqueur that Funkavoked. It was their tradition. It was awful. Oh no, it was nice, but it was strong anyway. But yeah, that was a brilliant experience. And then that same tour, after we left Leipzig, we went to Berlin, walked into the big department store, which is the record section, and our second CD had just been released. So that was there as well, sitting next to all this other stuff. I was like, yeah, okay, we should be here in Europe. I mean, it makes sense why so many people go to Germany and live there and do music.
How do you approach writing a song?
Often I'll have an idea. If I know it's for a certain project, like if it's a Novakill song or a Nova State Machine song, there's a sort of a sound already that we're sort of aiming for.
In your head.
Nova State Machine is a bit more dedicated, pure EBM, or that's how it started, certainly. So I've got a sort of a sound in mind, and I'll often start with a bass sound, but often I just playing around. I'm like, oh, I like that. I can sort of work with that and then sort of work on something. Often with Novakill, I'll do a bunch of parts, arpeggios, some rhythm parts. Maybe the structure of a song, and often what I would do is just do a whole bunch of parts that kind of fit, and I'll give that parts over to Bones, and he goes, I can hear all these things. It's not structured like a song. There's a lot of ideas there. So then he pulls it apart and structures it into a song that he can sing to. A lot of the time, I don't do the verse chorus thing. He does a lot of that. That's why if you listen to the Nova State Machine to compare it, a lot of it is kind of almost straight through without the big chorus coming in.
I definitely noticed that.
The vocals might change, but a lot of the music doesn't. I mean, it might add some bits. So there is a bit of a, I'm not going to say failing, but stylistically that is different. The chorus comes through Dima's, his lyrics and his vocals, but often the music sort of doesn't change so much. I'm more about the sound, I think, and the idea, the overall sound and attitude of the music. I don't ever think I'm trying to write a song. I just think I'm trying to write a strong, interesting piece of music that sustains your interest for 5.5 minutes. I've done some experimental music, playing around, 20 minute, 10 minute, 20 minute. I did a 30-minute piece once. But that sort of has to change. It's almost like 2 or 3 pieces sort of stuck together. But when I start, I'll have a basic idea in my head of where I think this is going to go. And often, because where you think something's going to go is not where it ends up. I listen to a lot of music, and you think, I want to write a song like that, or create that sound. So that's your starting point. And then, of course, by the time you finish, it's like, that doesn't sound anything like that. There might be some elements in there, but that's fine. I'm totally happy with that. What you get, still, if you're happy with it and it does the job, then fine. We don't we don't set out to sound necessarily like other bands. We're obviously influenced. We like the sound of other bands, but we don't often go, oh, I'm going to write an FLA song. It's like, oh, I like that FLA song, and you play around. Oh, there's some sounds. Oh, that's a bit like something I've heard. I'm going to play around with that and see where that takes me. But that I think it's exploration for me. There's a lot of it is the basic idea, starting point, that initial the impulse, and then see where it goes. And depending, what the end result, if it's for Nervous State Machine, it's not going to be too flowery or too poppy or too high. It's going to be sort of lower register, harsh noises, thumping, metallic percussion, that kind of thing. That's that sound. Nervous State Machine, it began life as a tribute to Test Department. That was the motivation for starting that. Obviously, Total State Machine. Then I wanted to get a Russian. I actually wanted Demon to sing in Russian. I wanted that international flavor,
sure,
and that harshness. And he said, oh yeah, I'll do, because he was a big Novakill fan, and he was doing some stuff, and he did some vocals, and I heard him go, oh, I'll get him to sing on my EBM project in Russian, and it'll sound great. And because his first, he sent me back some stuff, and it was all in English. So I said, oh, I wanted it I was hoping he'd sing in Russian. He said, oh, it's too hard. It's just too hard to sing in Russian and make it rhyme and make it work. English is much easier. I'm like, okay, but it still has a sort of guttural quality to it that I'm not a vocalist either. So, I mean, I've done some. Some people like my vocals, but I much prefer working with other people's voices. So that's why, I like working with Bones. I'll do a certain amount on an idea or a song, hand it over. He does the rest. He'll pass it back. I'll do some extra bits and pieces. With Novakill, the vocals are almost always the last thing. Like, we get the songs, because Bones, he knows what he's doing. Like, he's written lyrics for it, and he's working on the vocals in his head as he's finishing the songs. But we don't often record the vocals until almost right at the end, put them in, and then tweak them. I like to sort of do it, get 50, 60, 70% of the song, then get some vocals, fit them in, and then play around. I haven't done that enough. I want to do that more on the next Nervous State Machine, and maybe some other things. But I think that's probably my next stage, is working more with the vocals and constructing around that, or using them to construct. Whereas a lot of the time, you sort of build the song, and then you're kind of fitting vocals into it. So I want to do more with writing as the process, and that's why we will always Novakill. We're going to do a bunch of songs, go out, play them live, and tweak them, adjust them, which is the old playing in pubs around town. You do that for a few years before you do your first album. That's how it used to be. And by the time you get to go into the recording studio, you've been playing the songs for a number of years. They've developed to a place where everyone's really happy with them, and they go in and they sort of nail it. Whereas this is a much different process. We wanted before COVID. We're actually saying, now we're going to go and do this. We're going to go out. We're going to book a few venues, even just small things, just so we can play these songs as part of the writing process. And then, of course, everything's shut down. It's like, there goes that idea. That was the next kind of stage of Novakill, a slightly different way of writing. But we mixed it up. This album, it had some different things in it. went a bit post-punk, went a little bit experimental, and it's a sort of, for us, a more rounded album. We got to just play around a bit. We did 4 albums of a sound. Now we're just introducing or, pushing that a little bit for our own sake, not because we're trying to please anybody, other than us. And we're talking about maybe doing a post-punk, more of a post-punk project, whether that's Novakill or something else, I don't know. Bones has been playing around with a whole bunch of covers of 80s new wave stuff, just to scratch that itch of his, sort of. And now with all these, cool VSTs and the hardware that reproduces a lot of the early synths, getting those sounds, it's almost too easy. So he's, bang, bang, bang. You can grab a MIDI file, chuck in a couple of VSTs, bang, you've got something that sounds pretty close to the original version within, an hour or two. So he's been doing a whole bunch of cover versions of things. I don't know where that's going to go. He's quite, he's determined to start playing that, to go out, take that on the road, and get out there and actually play live, because that's the thing that he really, really enjoys. And that, that'll bounce back onto Novakill with how we go about things. So I'm sure as we're rehearsing, we'll find a sound, like a big bass sound, and go, oh, there's a Novakill song there, and then develop that. So it just comes from doing. You just got to do it, I think, and just see where it goes, and be prepared to let things take you, in a direction. I think if you try to be too strict, it often, it's like that old, bend in the wind. If you're too stiff, you'll break.
Yeah.
So that's part of keeping things fresh, being able to surf the chaos.
On that subject, the scene, I don't know how to ask this question, but the scene's sound has changed over the years. Where do you think it's going, and how do you think it's changing?
The scene's always been changing. It always has. And it's always had its little sub-genres, EBM, and then harsh EBM, and dark electro, and the more experimental stuff, and then electronic, industrial rock, etc. I think the ease now, we're bedroom producers. A lot of people can just make a lot of music. And often it's the ones that, get out there and sell it. There's a lot of great music you just don't know about. But there's a lot of crap music you hear about because the people who make it are also the ones that just yell the loudest and just, flood everything. And a lot of people now, with this technology, as great as it is, can get a few sample packs of some nice beats, pre-processed, pre-produced beats and synth loops and synth sounds. Put a few things together. Oh, I'm a producer. I've done a song. Same as like DJs playing other people's records, and they get all the credit. Yes, I was a DJ, but yeah, it should be about the bands, man, not the DJs. But I think on Facebook, as an example, there's quite a few groups that push the music, which is great. But also a lot of people are pushing their own YouTube channel. They'll get someone else's music, upload it to their own YouTube channel, and then they play that or present that, rather than send. I always post a link to Bandcamp, to a band's Bandcamp page. go and have a listen to this on their page. They get the play, and if you like it, you can buy it straight away. I'm not a big fan of the YouTube thing. I mean, I see its value in terms of getting things out there, but it's not pushing traffic to the artists enough, to the proper artists. I think there's a lot of people who are cashing in on other people's music, either by grabbing the sample packs, doing bang 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 in GarageBand or Acid, and that's, here I am a producer, and I think that's created so much noise, so much bad music, just flooded the airwaves with bad music, and to a point where a lot of people are almost accepting of that. Like, okay, there is so much of this stuff, it must be good. It's like pop radio. If you don't know to listen beyond commercial radio, all you know is the top 40, because this is what the DJs who are paid to play this is what they sell. So a lot of people, that's all they know. And unless you're prepared to go digging through, Facebook and Bandcamp and other places, you can find some gems in there. But I think all this noise of crap is really hurting music and art, I think. There's the change, obviously, and the more popular things. And I think we were talking about this today, but in terms of, everyone likes the danceable, catchy, emotional tunes, which is great. I mean, I did too. Covenant, I'm a big fan of Covenant and VMV, etc. There's always going to be a bigger market for that, but I think a lot of people hear that and think, "Oh, I can do that," without realizing how actually complex some of that stuff is. Like VMV, on the surface, it almost sounds, it's deceptively simple, and a lot of people do other, something similar. It approaches that, and they go, "Here we go, I've done this." If you like VMV, you'll like this, and you can hear it and go, "No," but there's just so much of that stuff where people are changing and pushing their own mediocrity. I think that's the problem. It's just flooded with stuff that's not great. It's just so much mediocre stuff out there, it gets in the way of the really good stuff.
That's very interesting. On that note, I actually wanted to ask you, what do you think is the role of record labels nowadays? Are they even relevant anymore?
Yeah, I've had this debate with people. Traditionally, a record label, they do your promotion. They'll give you some money. They'll give you your advance. You go and work on your album, spend your advance recording an album, because they go, "Okay, I know your material. I think we can make so much money from this. This is the value of it. So we'll give you an advance, accordingly, that you can spend making this music good. Go into a studio or spend time, buy some software or hardware and get that right. So you can do that." And then the record label, they have people that know when to market it, when to release it, where to push it, the contacts, which DJs to give it to, which magazines to speak to, etc. That's the value of a record label. And we debated with the Novakill, because Repo is a really small label, like really small. They've got a few artists, but they've got day jobs, and it's not their full-time gig. And we sort of debated: do we stay with them? Do we try maybe a bigger label in the scene? Do we just try and do it ourselves? Do we just do it through Bandcamp? And we ended up, we went, we shopped it around, we contacted a few labels, but we wanted, a lot of them have a sort of a longer, lead time. We were sort of thinking, when we wanted to get it released. Alpha Matrix was going to be months and months and months after we wanted to have it out, which is, again, if you go with a label, you're at their mercy. They kind of know, but at the same time, they've got a certain number of artists. They've got things that, there's a production line. They've got to get that out. They've got to work their way through that before they get to yours, which is fine. The Repo, they're small, and we did all the work here, produced it ourselves, sent them all the final masters, and they went, yep, we can do some pushing for you. We've got contacts. Here's this. Already within weeks, we're in the charts because Repo, they know where to get it to. So we're in the charts in Germany, and certain magazines that, they know which ones to deal with, which I don't have that. I could probably spend time doing that, but I'd much rather make music and do that. Let them do that stuff. Kai doesn't make music anymore, so he doesn't make music, but he likes to release it and promote it. That's the value. Even a small label, that's how it fits. Like managers who help you get your music out, help you make your music and get it out there. But now, so many people. Well, I started my own small record label, but all it is just, a Bandcamp page where I can release my own stuff. There's value in that because there's no restraints other than, well, distribution. You don't have that, but Bandcamp has tools on there to help you, and you can spend hours on Facebook, hitting up groups, getting it out there. But I'd much rather let someone else deal with that. And they can organise. We only went to Wave Gothic because Kai on Repo, he got us on the bill because he had Funkavote and Ravenous, and I think Fusspills 11. I'm not sure if they played, but he certainly had a couple of bands. And he was able to get us on, and that's again the value of a label. If Nova State Machine wanted to get on Wave Gothic, we're tiny, but it was just so much work having to get that when a record label can do that, and a big record label, but a major, of course, they have to make a lot of money. They have to make a lot of money to keep going. So that's a whole nother industry in itself. Just the amount of money they spend producing a song and then promoting a song, just to get the sales. I actually admire people like Taylor Swift who've kind of eschewed that major label idea, and she's releasing stuff herself. I know she used the labels to a point, and now she's kind of gone out on her own, and she doesn't need them anymore. That's great. But I think they still have value because they're also. I mean, gatekeeping's the wrong word, but at the same time, it's the right word.
Connections.
That's why. Yeah, but you knew generally stuff that got released, and you'd go into a record store often, it would meet a certain level because it's gone through a number of hands to get produced. It's gone through obviously the artists, and then an A&R person, and then the label, and then the whole process of getting that made. Whereas now, because you can bang, 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 stick it up within a minute, you can crank something out in 5 minutes, real time, stick it up on Bandcamp, and there's a song, just more noise. There was a level, an A&R person wouldn't sign a band unless they were of a certain level. And they knew that had a quality to it, and often they'd find a band that's been playing, and there was a process of creating bands and creating music. When I say creating bands, I'm not talking about just grabbing people and chucking them together. Here, sing this. I mean, a real band that works together. There's that level of proficiency, or at least quality, that a label creates. And then, yes, it's their product, and then they promote it. And the bigger labels obviously promote more and can tread on the little guys. But I think there is a real value in that. Alpha Matrix, as an example, is a label I'd actually admire. They have a good stable of bands. The music is always good quality. Some of it I don't like, but it's always a good quality. And I think they do an excellent job of maintaining a product. Like, they have a brand that you go, oh, and that's the other thing with labels. Like Zothomog. Oh, it's a Zothomog release. I'll get it. It's going to be good. It's going to be something I like. Alpha Matrix now, or there was a whole bunch in the 90s. Mute Records as a label was quality. Quality and an attitude. It was similar, I guess, to the film movie studios, but that's so all over the place. Warner Brothers can produce something great and then something crap. I don't know, a record label can too, but Mute 4AD, you just knew, that they each had their own quality with it to them, and you knew you were going to get something that met a certain standard, and it wasn't just potluck. So I think labels do have a place. I think a lot of people saying labels are dying is a disservice, and I think it hurts the broader music industry, just because there's so much noise out there, so much garbage. I think that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to take a toilet break quick, but before I do, I don't know if you heard, I think it was Beatport last year. There was like 10 million albums released on Beatport. And out of those 10 million albums, only, I think it was like 10% sold more than one song. And out of that 10%, only 1% sold the whole album. So, I mean, people aren't consuming albums the same way, or music the same way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I was having this discussion about Bandcamp with Bones, because Bandcamp, he saw their stats say more people bought albums, because I release EPs. I think EPs is kind of the way I'm looking at doing EPs for a few projects, just because it's less songs to get done, so you can get it down in a shorter time, and you can be a nice little contained package. 5-6 songs, it's like a mini album, EP, get that out. And we're sort of talking about doing maybe a couple of those, and he was saying, oh, yeah, but according to Bandcamp, they sell more albums than anything. But Bandcamp, of course, they only distinguish between an album, which could be a one-track album, and a track.
True.
So that algorithm, those stats don't really sort of stack up in terms of that. But Spotify is the enemy,
the devil,
as far as I'm concerned. It's been happening for a while, of course, before Spotify and Napster and all that, and people, this expectation of, why should I pay for music? I don't have to pay for music, so why should I? So a lot of people who they don't understand the process of making music, even though so many people can now try it in their own bedroom, but what it takes to actually put a song together, it's expensive in terms of time, money, software and gear, etc. But even just time alone, if you're getting paid like a real job, it would cost. People don't understand that, so they think, oh, the music's out there for free. Sure, I'll get it for free. I shouldn't have to pay for it. Same as people will pirate movies that cost millions and millions to make, but they make lots of money anyway. But yeah, so many people don't appreciate what goes into making the music, and then they just want to get it for free because they can. And that whole idea too of Spotify, they only pay for, it's a minuscule amount of fraction of a cent for a play, and you've got to get so many streams to earn a certain amount, which is where, again, with the big players like the big studios who push their music, the big labels, they can promote their music, so they'll get some money through Spotify, but then people go out and buy their stuff as well, because that's all they know, because they've heard it on radio, on the top 40 radio shows. It's that is hurting music as well, because there's so much good stuff out there you just don't hear, and people just don't know about. But other people say, oh yeah, but it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't have known about Novakill or Nova's Tape Machine. Okay, fair enough, but at the same time, you're not supporting us. You're still listening for free. You're not buying our stuff, and we get okay, you've got us on Spotify, but we don't get anything for that unless you listen to it millions of times. We get nothing from that. Okay, you know about us, but okay, you like our music, but okay. I mean, again, not that we were ever in it for the money, but people should pay for what they like and enjoy. And I put music on Bandcamp, pay what you want, and some people do. They buy it, which is great. I mean, it's not enough to sustain me, but just knowing there are people out there who appreciate what things cost, the value of things. There should be, and most of the time they're either DJs or other musicians who buy your stuff, rather than people who are just fans.
What would be your advice?
Don't expect to make any money. Don't do it for that reason. Most people do it because they've got to rock. They're compelled to make sounds and to groove and explore. Don't be afraid to play, to try things, I guess. I mean, there are some freaks out there who just know what they want. Bam, they can do it. The rest of us got to work at it. And you've got to work at it, and it can take years and years. I like the fact that I used to cut up tape, and I can appreciate that, and now I can appreciate that I don't have to do that. But so many people come up and they're just like, well, I want to do this, 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 and this. Why doesn't my software do that? Work with the tools you've got. Learn the tools you've got. I think that's an important thing too. Know like the steps. History is very important. I was actually lecturing in media arts earlier this year, and because a big part of it is history, the history of filmmaking, the history of the technology of filmmaking, the language of filmmaking. It's really hard to just jump in and make a film without knowing all that stuff. I mean, you can do that. You can study old films, or you can sit down and watch Netflix for a few weeks straight through, like Yahoo series. Just watch this old movie, I don't know, 20 times, and it went, okay, now I know how to make a movie. But there's a process. You can do it that way, do it another way. I did see, and so history, knowing if you're going to work in a genre, know where that genre came from, or developed from. I think that's really important, and that helps kind of shape maybe what you want to do. There was a really good chat that I watched some of. I mean, it went on for a few hours, but it was Tom Mellard from Severed Heads and Kevin Key from Skinny Puppy. He was having a chat, just shooting the breeze during lockdown, just on Zoom. And I've heard Tom talk before, but he was this is fresh in my mind, but he was just saying how when he started, he actually didn't know about a bunch of stuff, and he said, if I had have known that this existed and this existed and this existed and that they'd done that, I probably wouldn't have, because they'd already done that. Whereas I always see it the other way. I think, okay, they've done it and they've done it their way with what they had. I really like some of those ideas and that sound. I want to do something like that, but my way. I know that exists, so now that inspires me to make my own thing like that. Like seeing a movie that you like and going, well, I'd like to do that, or hearing The Cure. The Cure is great. That's one of the bands I listen to that makes me always maybe want to stop listening and then run into the studio, even though I don't play guitar. Like, it's a completely different thing, but that was like songwriting, and I know I don't write songs. It was really weird, but they were one band that I always would listen to that, and it would make me want to go and work. Whereas I'm listening to other stuff like FLA and Numb and Skinny Puppy. I just listen to that, and I just get stuck listening to that. Whereas, The Cure and Your Water, go, oh, yeah, I like that lyric or that drum. I'm going to go and do that. Yeah. Listen to stuff, hear what other people are doing. Don't copy. Don't try and copy. Take inspiration, but don't copy. Know what's out there, but at the same time, I mean, you can't listen to everything. And I try and listen to a variety, from harsh noise wall, which you can only listen to for 5 minutes at most. Although Most Bell live for 45 minutes was absolutely incredible. He came out to Sydney last year, and my ears were ringing for days and days, but it was worth it. It was brilliant. But that's that's the level above. That's not just noise. That is noise. That's noise as an art form, and that's really hard to do. But I think there's so much crap out there. Be critical. Look for advice. Collaborate. Collaboration is a really good way to learn. Absolutely. I've learned so much from working with Bones in Novakill. I've learned actually a lot by working with Demon, just because the process where I'm doing a lot of the music, it's like, and it's different to Novakill. I'm trying different things. Then I was working with Damage Control, different way of working, different software, but I was able to extend myself. I was saying, oh, okay, that's a different way of working, and it's a different sound. And there was a chance to work with Chris Peterson and Craig Huxtable from OM the damage control guys like Bill, he's got a really good ear, but yeah, it's a different way of working. But that encouraged me to actually change my style a little bit. So I think that's important, just to try things. It's really, if you focus in and just do your thing, okay, you might be really good at it, but I think that's just your thing, and it can be, you can form a rut and get stuck in that. That would be my advice. Just don't try and do the one thing, because I don't think you can. I mean, any artist is like, God. I mean, I'll hear something on a film or a TV score or whatever, and go, oh, John, I want to do that. And sort of often I'm jumping around. I've got 5 different projects going at once because I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do this. That can be counterproductive because you're losing focus. So I think knowing your limitations, don't restrict yourself, but at the same time, sometimes you do have to limit yourself. It's difficult. It can be hard because you can go off in tangents. Deadlines. Set deadlines. You break them, but set a deadline. I've got for the last Novakill, Bones. He said, "Great, we're going to finish a song every month. So by the end of the year, we've got an album. So we're going to work on this song this month, this song this month, this song this month." I mean, I was giving him ideas, and he was, constructing them, and that worked really, really well. It was a process. And I think that's important, giving yourself that process. But if you're just starting out, that takes time to know your limitations, know how you work. And the only way to find that out is to do it. Like James Cameron would say, if you want to write a film script and you want to learn how to write, the only way to do it is to write. You just got to get there and do it. Get advice from people. There's so much out there. Hey, I'm Craig Saunders. I'm a music producer in Sydney, Australia. Got a few music projects, bands, if you like. I work in industrial, EBM, film score type music, and branching out to other things. Visual artist as well. So I work with CG mainly, 3D rendering and digital processing. Got a few projects currently in the works. Released a few albums over the years, and this year was kind of a big year in terms of productivity. Next year, I'm hoping for even more, dare I say it.
So do you have a philosophy for life?
Being open-minded, I think, is a big part of my philosophy. Being open-minded, but at the same time, knowing, and you don't know who you are until, I don't know, you've lived your life, but I'm getting to that stage, maybe. Get out there and know what's happening in the rest of the world, the universe even, we're this tiny little speck. I think it's not about knowing your place, but appreciating your place. That I think is important, knowing that it's not just about you and about what you're doing, even though often it sort of seems like that's just, this is me, this is my life. It's not. There is, I'm aware of, I'm just a tiny little part of it. But, we all have our place, and we can, even just one tiny little person in a big wide world can make a difference. I think, was it Dalai Lama, Buddha, someone, if you think a small thing can't make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. You just, the impact of that. So I think that's important. There is so much information out there, you can't read it all. Question things. I think, authority has its place, but at the same time, don't just take it for granted. Yeah, I think that's probably the main thing. Question everything and don't take anything for granted. And do what you can to help others. And often you got to get yourself to a certain place before you can help others. That's fine. One of the first things that with safety and security, if someone's injured and you need to go and help them, you first need to make sure that you're safe. You can't just rush out into traffic or dive in. You might not be able to swim. You can't just dive in and try and save someone if you can't swim. You can't just rush out into traffic without first checking, is it safe to go out? Yeah, I want to go and help that person, but there's no point in me just getting bowled over as well. So common sense. Try things, but art and music are important. Information's important, and questioning the information.
So you've got children. Do you hope that they become creative as well?
Yeah, you can't force that. You can only, because my wife is a photographer, and we actually met at art school, and yeah, you always want your kids. I want be creative and do stuff, not to follow what I do, but just for their own sake. I think it's really important to do that, and they have a bit of talent, a bit of desire. Sometimes the telephone, the phone, and tech, and their friends gets in the way of just When I was growing up, we didn't have that, so you would draw, you would doodle, you would read comics, and then write your own comic, and then draw your own comics. They don't do that as much now because you're just flicking through Snapchat and TikToks and YouTubes and Netflix and all that stuff. It's given to you, but they have some motivation to draw, paint, cook. Cooking's great. Cooking's a great creative outlet. My son plays bass, so he's picked that up. He has quite a good ear, and he likes. When he was very young, playing KMFDM and Rammstein and Joy Division and stuff, and now he's like got his bass going, got a band happening, and that's his outlet. I mean, he plays tons of computer games, video games, which is fine. But yeah, he's got that musical itch now that he is starting to scratch more and more. And I've got some gear here that he can come and play with and start putting down some bass lines and add some drums. But it took me a while. I wasn't doing this stuff properly until I didn't have all the gear until mid-20s, I guess. So he's got time to. It's there though. It's at his fingertips. He can come and play with it. Yeah. So I don't know where that's going to go, as far as his music goes. But at the very least, he can sit in his room and play riffs for till the cows come home.
So what advice would you give to yourself 10 years ago?
Ten years ago, I had young twin girls who would have been 4. So that was hard. That was all about them. And I had my son's a bit older. He's a few years older than them. So that was all about 10 years ago. That was all about kids. However, there was a period around then where I was really creative. I had time. I had a burst of energy, an opportunity to work on music, and I just went mental. So if I could talk to myself then, I'd say, just keep doing what you're doing, because that creative burst is paying off now. I'm still digging out songs, ideas from then, and finishing them off. Like, I didn't have the gear to do it properly, but the ideas were there. I had the gear, the resources to get the ideas down, and they're still there. They're sitting on my old computer. Now I'm digging them out, and it's still the sound I liked. It's still me. There's stuff in there. And now, like, oh, okay, now with the skills and the hindsight, I can. Some of it's terrible. I know it's just, at the time it sounded good, but I listen to it and I go, okay, yeah, that was crap. So that was, I would say, don't rush. It's a process. That burst of creativity then will pay off. You will get to it. It may take a while, but you will get to it, and you'll be satisfied. When I went off and I've worked on movies and different things, and I think now though I'm in a with the music, my own art, kind of getting to a place where I am happy with it. Maybe I could have started that a bit earlier. But life, all that crap, I think, I would just say to myself 10 years ago, it is a process and you will get there. Yeah, you just work at it and it will pay off. Not going to be tomorrow, but there'll be a payoff, whether that's, for your own satisfaction or something bigger, and things that there's a bit of movement now. I'm hoping next year things will move even more around this stuff. The COVID thing for me, it kind of paid off. A lot of people came out worse from it. Obviously, a lot of people did, but for me, being in here, focusing on this has been great. I've achieved quite a bit in myself.